We're joined by Grigoryi German, commentator for ICTV. Good evening.
Good evening, nice to see you.
Right, so first I'd like to ask you about the recent Ukrainian attacks in Crimea. What was their purpose?
Well, we find out some military ships there, some military boats, and we found out that the ferry from the Kerch Peninsula, and we hit it because this is the legal target for us.
Mm-hmm. Rightly so.
Right, and let me ask you about these long-range drones and missiles, right? Because there's been a lot of talk about the long-range missiles, about Ukraine being permitted to use them, right? Like ATACMS, for instance. But Ukraine has already been using drones, right, to do just that, to attack targets within Russia. For instance, in Orsk, I believe, it's like 1,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So you know, do you feel like Ukraine needs that permission from the US, for instance, to use these missiles?
Yes, of course, 100%. Because you have to understand, the drones have the very small warhead. It's about 20 kilograms or maybe a maximum of 15 kilograms. But these rockets, ATACMS, have much bigger warhead, and it's cluster munitions and unitary munitions. And we need this warheads to hit the targets like warships or pointing where the Russian soldiers, occupiers collected near the border. So we don't need this weapon to hit the targets, oil refinery, about 1,100 kilometers from our border. We need this weapon to hit the targets near our border. That's the point. That's why we need it.
Mm-hmm. Ukraine is probably suffering now to some extent because of the reluctance of its allies to provide it with more weapons in the past. Because now we have all these new deals signed by President Zelensky, and therefore I'd like to ask you how these bilateral deals have been perceived in Ukraine. Have they calmed down the situation, the internal situation?
Well, the internal situation, guys, we have a 2 years war here. And of course, we have the society that tired from this war. But we just remember that we have the one goal in this war. We have to win this war because in any other case, we don't have Ukraine, we don't have the country. And Europe have to remember that in any other case, they will see the army not only from Russian, but the Ukrainians from occupied territories in their borders, in European borders. We see what happened in occupied territories when the men's and the women's suffer from the occupiers, and that's our goal. And of course, all what happened out there in the international markets, on the international, in the diplomacy front is not for us. But you have to understand, we have one goal: to win this war.
Grigoryi, let me ask you about the U.S. and Ukrainians' approach to U.S., or perhaps how the U.S. is being perceived. Because, I mean, Secretary Blinken was recently in Ukraine, right? He even sang in a bar. But then when it comes to concrete actions, such as, for instance, letting Ukraine use these long-range missiles, the U.S. is one of the last countries to be stalling with that decision. So what is the public's opinion take on American approach?
We are waiting, and in the public opinion, oh gosh, why is so long? And now we understand that probably we don't see any statements from the White House and from Oval Room, but Russian will see the rockets that falling on their heads. And this is the goal for us. We don't need a statement. We need permission. It will be secret permission or public permission. It's not the point for us. We need just a permission from the United States. And of course, I think we will have it. And I think we will have it soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Right. Grigoryi, and I'd like to ask you about the situation around Kyiv because we know that Russians have been amassing large numbers of soldiers there. And, well, on the one hand, we have assurances from President Zelensky that the situation is stable. But then, on the other hand, I'm wondering whether it's just, you know, a sort of a calm before a major storm. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Of course, this is it. Of course, now we have the stabilized situation near Kharkiv, but of course we know, and our intelligence will see these movements. They collect the new power. They trying to collect the units from the other parts of the front line, and they collect the soldiers from the deep of the Russia. And of course, they will try to do something else. But the first stage of this operation near Kharkiv is our, not a victory, but it's our achievement. It's this field is around us. It's for us. But in tomorrow we will see. Not tomorrow, but in future we will see the second part of this offensive, Russian offensive near Kharkiv.
Right. So we have NATO's Foreign Ministers Summit happening in Prague as we speak, and sort of I wanted to ask you about something similar to what I asked Oz. Right? What are Ukrainians' expectations of the summit? Because apparently some funding is supposed to be discussed during that meeting.
Yeah, of course, we have a lot of questions to discuss with the NATO, and NATO countries has a lot of questions to discuss with themselves. It's a fund in Ukraine, it's an army in Ukraine, it's a future armament of Ukraine, it's military production in Ukraine and for Ukraine. And of course, it's our big expectation, it's our dream to hear the terms and conditions when Ukraine could have the part of the NATO, could be the part of the NATO. And I believe, and we believe that it will be in future, but when? That's the question.
From what I gathered, I mean, this is exactly what Jens Stoltenberg is trying to suggest: increased funding over several years, as opposed to NATO membership, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Of course.
Yes. I'll also like to ask you about your feelings about the new arms deliveries to Ukraine, now that we have all these bilateral deals. And when do you think we should expect to see some major effects of those on the Ukrainian battlefields? Because, of course, time is of essence here, right? As always.
Yeah, absolutely. Time is a key. You see the great package from the Sweden. You see this beautiful AWACS planes, and this is absolutely fantastic before our F-16 will arrive. But in all cases, you have to understand, don't ask when you see the Ukrainian victory. Just ask yourself, do I did enough for this victory? And this is the key question for everyone in every country that supports Ukraine. Because Ukraine do their best, do United States do their best, do the France do their best. Well, that's the question for American and for French and for Europeans.
Grigoryi German, thank you, sir, for being with us this evening.
Thank you, and thank you, bye.